Hello, hello. Hey, Audrey.
Hi, is this lighting very bad?
Yeah, you're a little backlit.
Hmm. Okay.
Still waiting on more people to come on, waiting on Sara to come on. Today we are talking about deconstructing whiteness and connection and ancestry. So if you know other people that need to be watching this live, go ahead and send this to them. Hey, Celeste, 819.
Is turning more lights on making it worse or better?
I think you need to move away from the window or put something behind it. Hi. That's better. That's good. Yeah. Just waiting on Sara to join. Hello, hello. Hey, everybody that's joining. Audrey, maybe scoot it over just a little bit. Yeah, that's good. How are you feeling about today?
So nervous. I've never done a live before.
You know what? This is my first live too.
Fun.
I haven't done a live before either. I'm excited about this series though. I'm excited about introducing people to you all. Um, I'm excited about people getting to know more about your work, so that they can also make sure that more people in the community have the resources that you're offering. So I feel good about that. Let me go ahead and text Sara and see where she's at. So we could get started at 6, maybe a little bit after 6. Do you have your cup with you?
I do.
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
And I'm like so serious about my mug collection, so it's such an honor to have a Doorways mug.
Only people that work at Doorways get Doorways mugs. It's a time honored tradition. So if anybody ever sees someone with a mug that says Doorway Therapeutics, that means that they work there. Hi, Inner Journey Wellness. Is that a friend of yours?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can say hi to your people too.
I can't actually see.
Oh, maybe because I'm the host, I'm the only one that can see the folks that are coming in. Hey, Wilhelmina. I was just talking about you earlier today with Yana. So we definitely have to talk soon. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming back. 'Cause I know you were here when we did our little practice round. I was waiting on a few more people, trying to see if we can get to our other person that we're interviewing today. Hi. What do you feel like you're most excited about people to get from our conversation today?
Inspiration,
Hey,
like
Lavisa. Uh-huh.
that, yeah, just there's possibility. Like we're not trapped. It feels like we're trapped,
Mm-hmm.
but there's so much spaciousness for expansion and growth.
Mm-hmm. There is. There is. There is. You know, and I think that that hope is like I'm gonna ask you, I'm not gonna give you the full question, but I'm gonna ask you a question about hope because it's so real. And it's so needed at this time. And it's hard to be hopeful right now. Um, and sometimes that burden that's on people's back around whiteness, perpetuating whiteness, or who they are in terms of whiteness can be a barrier to really having movement that moves more in the direction towards hope. Yeah. Do you see more friends?
Yeah.
Mhm. Is it Faye finding her way?
Mhm.
That makes sense. I love having fairies on the call. Love all the
Me too.
fairy magic on Instagram. I'm gonna check and see if somehow maybe I miss Sara coming in. And also if oh there she is. Let me add her. And then we could go ahead and get started with our call. Hi Maria.
Hello.
Hello,
Hello.
hello. All right. So I think we got a good number of folks. We're gonna go ahead and get started with our time today. So first, tell me what's in your cup. Who are you? What do you do at Doorways? And what is in your cup? Whichever one of you wants to go first.
My name is Audrey. I am a student intern, and I we've made this beautiful tea blends for our group. I'm gonna name one ingredient is rose petals for connection to
Mhm.
the hearts and compassion and relational healing while inviting openness and tenderness into difficult but necessary work.
Yes. Yes. Okay, who are you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Sara. I also go by Sara. And in my cup is passion flower, which helps us to calm our nerves and is especially essential in this conversation, but also in this work we are seeking to do.
Hmm. And so for your tea blend, we created a tea blend called Sipping into Sovereignty, right? Or this is on Sipping into
Faith
Sovereignty?
against supremacy.
Sipping Against Supremacy. Sada's
That
tea
one's
blend.
coming
Sip against.
next.
No, that one's yours. And so, for those of you that are new here, we're doing a series with each of our therapists just to kind of get you all to know them a little bit more and the work that they're doing. And also to like kind of talk shop about some really important topics that are related to the folks that they want to serve. For today, we're talking about whiteness, we're talking about ancestry, we're talking about reconnection. Um,
Courtney, we
Brittany,
went.
can't
I
hear
can't
you.
hear you.
oh, I know why.
We can hear you now.
Okay. I think it's because someone connected to my car and my car was connected to my phone. So passion flower, rose petals, borage, and fennel seeds. Those are the four ingredients in your blend. They'll be available at local apothecaries by the end of the week. So for those of you all that also want to sip against supremacy, you can join Audrey and Sara. And then you'll also have a QR code with the link to this IG Live as well. So we're going to start with an open door moment. And I'd like for one of you to tell me what first drew you to doing the work around whiteness, ancestry, and liberation.
Yeah, I can go ahead and get us started. Um, I think what really drew me to that is like beginning with my own healing and my own search for liberation and really freedom and what that meant for me. Um, like many of us, I hadn't realized how much of my life had been shaped by messaging around me. And the more I grew into that awareness, um, it really did begin to liberate me and continues to liberate me. And with time, that really expanded of realizing that my liberation doesn't exist in isolation and it's bound up in our collective liberation. And so, if we're talking about liberation in any real way, it also means contending with the systems that shape our suffering. And so, that's really what brought me into this work.
Audrey, what was the moment you realized that dismantle this conditioning and return to something deeper and more authentic?
What was the moment? Can you repeat the question?
What was the moment when you realized that we need to mantle the conditioning and return to something deeper and more authentic?
Yeah, I don't know if there was a moment like, I identify as a forest fairy, so I just came into this world like I was in elementary school, like, this isn't right. Like, doesn't feel right. And so, nature connection was such a big part like of my seeking when I was young. And, um, similar to what Sara was saying, like understanding as I'm like needing to understand empire and systems of oppression that are like have always come down on magic, witches, fairies, um, to understand empire enemy is to like untangle it and understand like deeper systems of oppression. And again, like our liberations are entangled with each other.
Mm-hmm. So that brings me to a good question. Like, what are the identities that you hold, and what makes you qualified to even be having a conversation about this? Audrey, so I know you said you identify as a forest fairy. What other identities do you hold?
Yeah, forest fairy, witch. My mom is Jewish, and when I was growing up, I witnessed like a lot of anti-Semitism directed at her, that I didn't think was related to me. Like when we would go visit my dad's side of the family, she wouldn't be allowed to go inside the house, but I could go inside the house.
Mm-hmm.
So there were these like things I didn't understand as a kid, but then as an adult, again, just like that unraveling and understanding more. Um, Systems of oppression, discrimination, like these layers, this hierarchy, which is like really embedded in white supremacist culture, is hierarchy and that belief that there's something that's superior, and that again goes into the nature connection and the relatedness and the roots, and that is like that's dismantling systems of oppression is also reconnecting to the land, to spirit, to trees, and yeah.
Mm-hmm. Audrey, Sara, what identities do you hold? What makes you qualified to have this conversation?
Yeah, so I think throughout my life, I've carried multiple identities, as we all do. I've definitely experienced class mobility and kind of moving between, obviously not the upper class, but the middle and below, and still continue to navigate that. I'm white and European ancestry. My parents are converts to Islam, and so I was born and raised Muslim. And so I feel like I was always really navigating like belonging and difference. And especially like being visibly Muslim post 9/11 and being a teenager, like these were very core experiences for me. But so much of my identity was really rooted in my faith growing up. And so I didn't really grow up with that strong awareness of myself as white. I knew I
Mhm.
was white, but didn't know what that really meant. And as I've moved through the world, less as a visibly Muslim woman, I started to notice how easily I was received,
Mhm.
right? That I could just be folded into belonging. Like, obviously, I'm still a woman, like, I still experience oppression in other ways, but how easily I could really be like brought into that belonging while still holding this imprint of having been seen and treated as other, but having this privilege, right? That I could just take off the hijab and all of a sudden be accepted in a way that other folks really can't.
Mhm. And so you had kind of talked about this conditioning, and I really want to get more into the meat of our conversation. And like when you think about conditioning, especially around whiteness, what are you naming? What have people taught, either explicitly or implicitly?
So I think, thinking about whiteness, it's really this system of power that grants privilege to those who are defined either as white or as having a kind of proximity to whiteness. And so when I'm talking about conditioning, I'm naming these systemically enforced ideas that we have been taught or we have inherited, that we didn't consent to, that we often don't have awareness of, about separation,
Mhm.
hierarchy, control, these things that are so. Resma Menakem says it's the water we swim in, right? It's like it's so embedded that it feels like truth and it feels like something unquestionable. And so it lives, it's not just a belief, it's not just an idea, it lives in our bodies, it lives in our relationships, and certainly within institutions. And it really teaches us that separation is normal, that control is safety, that individuality supersedes interdependence, right? Like all of these ways that we've historically lived. Yeah, and I think also just that history is not connected to the present. I think that's a really big one.
Mhm. Yeah. Everybody's in the past and it's not happening right now. What are some other ways that this type of conditioning shows up in everyday life and maybe even relationships, Audrey?
Hmm. Gosh, I would say for me, like fawning, trying to be perceived in a certain way, like trying to be acceptable, right? Like, how would I say? I'm drawing a blank, but I'm like, I mean, I'm understanding like the way, like I sometimes I'm even surprised at how normalized I feel like I've been anti-establishment from the jump and still
Mhm.
like catching these ways that I've been trained or like
Mhm.
behaviors come out of me that
Mhm.
I'm like, where did that even come from? Like, and still to be still be learning this as an adult and just catching these moments where it's like it's still this I'm still entangling it. It still lives in me.
Mhm. So we're talking about conditioning, but we're also talking about connection. And what does it mean to move from conditioning to connection? What could that look like?
Can I just say something real quick to Audrey's point?
Yeah.
Audrey, I really appreciate how you brought that to yourself, right? Because even when, if I was to answer that, I probably instinctually would be like, oh, it looks like this for people, not it
Mm-hmm.
looks like this for me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I think that is such an essential part of this work to really locate ourselves within it at every level. It doesn't matter where you are in the learning. It's so it's so embedded, right? Like I'm going to keep saying that over and over again. And so that accountability piece of knowing where we are in that, knowing the ways, it's so easy, even if we've been feeling this way since elementary school, or since forever, how easy it is to slip back into that and to say like, oh, I'm outside of this, or I've reached this stage in my racial identity or in my allyship or whatever it is that we're trying to say. And the reality is this is lifelong work. So I just want to commend you for that and to say that you're modeling in real time what it looks like for all of
Mhm.
us.
And so maybe that also still answers the question of like what it means to move from conditioning to connection.
Mhm.
And I hear you talking about connecting things to ourselves and then like the ways that we show up in relationship as well. Just the way that you two engaged in that process as well. So like other ways, like what else does moving from conditioning to connection mean to you all?
I think it's really like moving out of performance, right? Like the performance of being good. Like I think that is so much a part of white culture and whiteness is like being perceived as good. And that's why people struggle so much. All of us, right? We struggle so much when when we're called out or when attention is brought to something that we've done that's harmful because we all kind of want to see ourselves as good. And that's also like, that's not a bad thing either to try to be a good person while we're here. But it's this like performance of goodness rather than, in my mind, what's good is justice. What's good
Mm-hmm.
is liberation. What's good is truth. What's good is being in integrity with myself and with life. And so I think that's really what it's about is like moving away from this conditioning that separates us, right? And that kind of prioritizes like how we're perceived or alignment with whatever it is that we're conditioned into, and to say, I'm a traitor to this. Right? Like, I don't believe in this. I believe in relationships. I believe in accountability. I believe in listening to how I impact other people and into, some hard shit, frankly, but necessary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What do you think, Audrey? What does this move from conditioning to into connection mean for you?
Yeah,
And also, if there's anything you want to piggyback off of what Sada said as
I
well.
do. I do all of it. Um, I heard this great definition of whiteness the other day as having power over versus like finding power from within, right? Like, which is a toxic way. Like, it has to be harming somebody else to feel good about yourself. Um, and so, yeah, so there's a vulnerability in that, right? And having to be able to let go of this false sense. It's like also what whiteness does is it's like this false sense of security. So being able to be vulnerable, to show up, to feel shame, and sit with it, when you mess up, and then to grow from it. And that's composting. That's again, that's like being part of the earth and like nourishing and growing. Like it's amazing how simple it can be to be in connection of just like
Mm-hmm.
putting my feet on the ground and just breathing for a minute and remembering like there's breath there too, like there's connection, like I'm not individualism, right? Whiteness too is like, but no, like I'm part of this like ecosystem and we're all
Mm-hmm.
tending to each other.
Mm-hmm. And, you're kind of talking about this reconnecting, and I know that's also part of like the theme of today is like talking about reconnection and how does reconnection to ancestry support the process of unlearning whiteness?
Um, I think, I don't want to like be repetitive, but I kind of think about like these um core areas of disconnection, right? And trauma, right? Being disconnection. And so by being disconnected from our ancestry, by being disconnected from the land that we come from the cultures that we come from the language that we come from, that in and of itself is a trauma. And that in and of itself, like, pushes us to whiteness, pushes us into the protection that whiteness provides, but whiteness also really flattens our lineage, right? Really flattens who we are and who we come from, right?
Mhm.
Something that we all are made up of is just like hundreds hundreds of ancestors, right? Hundreds of people on each line of our family that we come from. It's really like quite overwhelming if you think about it, like the number of people that had to live and
Mhm.
fight and survive, right, to for each of us to be here. And so I think when we reconnect with our ancestry, it's really about seeing ourselves as part of a larger story, right? We're no longer this individual just kind of like floating off to the side, but we're part of this culture or ritual or
Mhm.
land or relationship broadly. And so it really breaks that idea of like whiteness as our identity and gives us, it offers us something that's more rooted and specific of like a sense of what we belong to, a sense of relationship with what we belong to.
I want to get some clarification on like what time period are you talking about when you talk about ancestry? You know, like when you talk about reconnecting, like people could be like I hear you saying like connect to our land. So people like, okay, today in England, this is what my ancestry is and what whiteness is. There might be pieces of it, right? But I think that the conversation about whiteness and ancestry also has to include Roman imperialism and what happened to like indigenous people from Europe and what happened with the broad paintbrush that was Protestant Christianity and the Roman Catholic Church, and the impact on that loss of ceremony and ritual that you were talking about for white folks. So just kind of place us in maybe a few time periods that people can think about when they think about reconnecting to ancestry.
So I know for myself, like I'll speak to what I often am connecting to or relating to, because I'm not trying to, I'll be honest with you, I'm not trying to connect with all my ancestors right now. We're not ready for that right now. And I think that's something that's a really important distinction. And I thank you for that because I'm simply not, there might be a time where I am trying to reconnect more broadly, but I would say right now, it's especially with the part of my ancestry who lived in colonial, like British colonized Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that's a really important part, and I'll say specifically the part of Ireland that was in resistance.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think that is a very important part of my lineage to tap into and my ancestry to tap into. And I would also say I'm tapping in with just broadly my pre-colonial ancestors, right? So that's before any of it, before any of them came through, who was there in relationship to the land. And I think especially about the women of my lineage, about the grandmothers and the great grandmothers and the great 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 grandmothers. And I know at some point somebody mentioned to me something about like, you can't imagine all of the people that have prayed for you, all of the women of your lineage and of your line that have prayed for you, right? And so that is just so humbling and powerful. And I will admit, there's days where I forget that they're all behind me. But then there's days where I really feel them. And I think that is something that's important to name here too, is that there was a time where if you asked me about my ancestry and about tapping into that, I would be like, what are you talking about? Right. And kind of discard it or And so this has also been a practice. I think it's important to name that it's a practice, and the automatic jump to like, oh, this should be discredited or this isn't real is also part of the conditioning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Audrey, when you think about connecting with your ancestors, what point in time do you go to?
Hmm.
Can't be the forest folk. It's gotta be the white folk.
Yeah, I mean, my mom's mom died when she was 17, and she was a revolutionary.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about her a lot. Um, I think about her a lot, and carrying on her work, because she was really serious about what she did in a time when like women weren't really like allowed to do that, which is amazing. Um, yeah, sometimes I try and connect with her in the dream time. I wonder who she is. I like look at old photos of her. But then same as what Sarah was saying, pre-colonial, I think my ancestries came from some disputed land in the Pyrenees between Germany and France, and just yeah, I like um, people who were connected to the lands, who were connected to the fae, the spirits, who had relationship. But I also do wonder about my fairy lineage.
I mean, it might be tied too. It doesn't have to be a separate thing. Um, and so, like, we're talking about places that you've been able to locate your pinpoint or some of the pinpoints for your work with your ancestors. What about folks who are feeling disconnected from their lineages and are unsure about where to begin? Um, what do some of those first steps look like?
I think it's not going to be the same for all of us, right?
Mhm.
There's a lot of reasons why it might not be easy to figure out where exactly your people come from.
Mhm.
But I also know that the people that I first began to learn about ancestral reverence from are Black women,
Mhm.
right? And there's a history there of being disconnected from lineage. And so I think it's really important to know that, like, you don't have to know the specifics. And oftentimes, that need to know the specifics are a part of the need to get it right and the need to be
Right.
perfect, even at this.
Mhm.
So, I would say, like, my process was maybe learning about the history of whiteness might even be the first step of like, how did whiteness even come about? Resma Menakem, my grandmother's hands, Dr. Eduardo Duran, Healing the Soul Wound, right? Like, there are resources out there, and I'm happy to share with anybody as well if they're interested. But I think that might be a really good place to start, to just understand how it came about and kind of what the history was before our people even landed here, right? Throughout Europe right, the colonialism that happened there and that we then enacted here, right? And enforced here. And so I will say that. I will say Ancestry, if you're able to get into that, some of the genealogy work can be helpful. Definitely, if you have elders that you're in connection with within your family, definitely. And then looking into, like, what are some of the cultural practices? What are some of the spiritual practices? What are some
Right.
of the healing practices of Europeans, if we need to keep it broad, right? Or of Irish people, of pre-colonial English
Mhm.
people, like getting into those practices, because I think also a lot of what we see is like appropriation of indigenous culture and indigenous practices, closed and not. And I think the really important thing to remember is that we all have indigeneity. We all come from indigeneity, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of these practices, there is overlap, which is why some of these practices might resonate with us, right? And feel like really natural to us. But it's also, I know we'll get more into right relationship in a minute, but I think that's why it's really important to know about the practices that your people had to then be able to go back to that and also to help strengthen that connection.
I mean, I love that you also brought in spirituality too, and like masses. So, like in a couple of interviews that I've done, I've talked about how I work with some of my white ancestors, and they're Gaelic, and I've met them through dreams or through journey work, and I have seen them enough for me to know who she is. She has a name. I love to hang out with her. She's cool, particularly when I feel hurt by white people. Like I run to her and be like, "Help me with your children," and so dream work is also a place where folks can do that reconnection. And if there are folks that are interested in journey work, we can do ketamine work where we do stuff where folks reconnect with their ancestors, but there are so many places. And then I love that you had talked about like the spiritual practices, right? And so there are folks that are in Europe that are doing work with like Welsh indigenous practices or Gaelic, or trying to piece together Celtic indigenous practices as well. And so it's not that it's not out there. And it does because we have closer proximity or access to like American indigeneity doesn't mean that we get to like bypass our own lineage. Because the truth is it's not gonna work. Like it's the things that are for you are in your blood, and they're like in the land that is tied to your blood, right? Like not the land that your ancestors have been on for the past 500 years. Um, so
And
there's
that's
that.
dangerous, right? Like if I'm trying to enact a practice from the ancestors and the keepers that my ancestors harmed, that's dangerous work, right? And I
Sometimes
think
it
there's
shows. And
right.
sometimes it shows when people are not fully grounded, or they're that's a whole nother topic. But this work requires a lot of like honesty and humility and courage. And like, what does it look like to stay in that when all the hard things surface, all the things that we're ignoring or turning away from around European ancestry? When that comes up, how do you stay present and tuned in without shutting down and turning away? Audrey, I'll
Sarah, you're
ask you.
killing it. I love
I know,
I love it
but
when you
we
go
have to
off.
balance it out. I'll ask you, what do you need to do? What do you feel? I mean, and I feel like this is a life for you too, like to be
Yeah.
with the work when
Yeah.
it's hard and you could shut down and walk away.
Mhm.
Yeah. No, it's hard and shutting down feels safe, but it's it's also not in alignment. Like it's
Mhm.
there's a bravery, there's borage, right? For courage. Like you have to be able to stand in your truth and like, power through when something's off, be able to work through it, right? And to come out on the other side because that's what we're doing. That's just like um yeah, it's not comfortable. It's not comfortable. It's growing pains,
Mhm.
right? But we are, and so I just, if the other option is stagnation, like that's, why would you want to do that?
Mhm. Yeah. And I think, that discomfort framed as growing pains as opposed to like a stabbing wound that's going to lead to death. Like this is not the end. If you're uncomfortable, you will be fine. You're just growing. You're not going to fall apart. And that is tied to right relationship. Like sometimes I think about apology and amends. Like everyone wants to apologize and like disavow this thing was terrible and we apologize. But how do you make amends? I don't care if you're sorry. What are you going to do now? If you're sorry about the past, that's not going to do nothing for me. What are you going to do now? How are you going to be in right relationship now? And for me, part of that is being uncomfortable to divest from this thing that harms other. What are other ways, and what does learning about being in right relationship, what is that?
I'm going to answer that, but can I again go back to the last question?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that is so important, especially right now. Like, I don't need to go into detail for all of us to know exactly what I mean as far as the state of this country that we are all in, right? And I think a big part of the work that we're talking about is also tied to the broader work that we have to do to survive here, right? Which is building capacity, like slowing down, feeling what we're feeling without being overwhelmed by it, and without moving into either this like collapsed state of like I can't do anything, or moving into shame, or like again this performance, right? It's like strengthening our bodies, conditioning our bodies to be able to withstand the discomfort. Because to your point, it's not going to kill us, right? And the discomfort, whatever discomfort we're feeling, I guarantee is far less than the discomfort and the physical, psychological pain that our global majority siblings face and deal with from much younger ages than we are as we're stepping into this work by choice, right?
Mhm.
So I think that piece is really important to keep in mind. But then going back to right relationship, I think um, it's like how we show up after the impact, right? Or it's really like this alignment between our values, our actions, and what impact we have, um, and not necessarily about being perfect within relationship, but about being responsive and responsible. And I'll add, like, it's not right relationship is not just about like interpersonal, right? It's right relationship with ourselves. It's right relationship with the land that we are on.
Mhm.
It's right relationship with our I'm trying to remember how Audrey says it, more than human, with
Mhm.
the more than human world,
Mhm.
right? It's right relationship with everything around us, everyone and everything around us, and how we center that more than, the individual, or more than what feels more comfortable, I'll say.
Mhm. Yeah, Audrey, when you think about some of this work, if you find someone kind of collapsing in shame, how do you move from responsibility? How do you move from shame into responsibility, action, right relationship? What are some things that you would offer to clients when they want to think about these concepts in these ways?
When someone is sitting with shame, how to help them move through it and find their way into right relationship. I would invite them to move into the feeling of shame. Like, I
Mhm.
am so nervous right now, even being on this live. And so you asked me that, and my heart sinks, and I'm like, okay, sit with the feeling. How I'm sitting with myself, right, is how I might bring it to the person. It's like, okay, moving into the feeling. What is it telling you? Where is that going to take you to now, right? Like
Mhm.
holding them through it to the other side
Mhm.
so then we can see what comes next.
Mhm. Yeah, and I love that there's no like this. First you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you get 6. It's like it is a journey. There is no way to know where your particular relationship to whiteness, or the fear around, or the shame around whiteness and trying to move into right relationship. There's no way to know where that path is going to take you. Um, and it can feel like something is being torn down without quite knowing what else comes next. And so we've had a lot of conversations about how while dismantling whiteness, there's also this thing that you're building towards. What is the thing that is also being built toward when we're talking about working with folks clinically to help dismantle whiteness?
I would move back a second, even with that sitting in the shame. And that is like composting, right? That can even be some medicine work, is going underground first, like letting it decompose and then moving into that was like perfect segue because then what grows from that compost. But first, like really feeling the yuck,
Mm-hmm.
letting it take you down, letting
Mm-hmm.
it mute or alchemize into something else first, going into the
Mm-hmm.
earth, undoing, and then,
Mm-hmm.
right? Then we have some rich soil. Then we can grow something new from it.
Oh, that metaphor hit in more than one way. Like I was thinking about the earth, and then I was also thinking about that process around shame. And like, you're right. If you run away from it, you never get to the part where it becomes fertile.
Mm.
Then it's just this sterile pile of shit that you're not trying to deal with. That's chasing you around and it stinks. But like when it does become more, when you do compost it, it gets to be something that life is sprouting from, whether it be mushrooms or plants. And how that actually ends up feeding an entire ecosystem. Like if it's a plant and then an animal eats it, and then maybe another animal eats that animal, and then maybe it somehow gets to us. And like there's just this entire cycle that happens with nourishment. And how can the shame and the fruits of that shame actually end up nourishing somebody moving towards responsibility and somebody moving towards action and somebody moving towards right relationship? Yeah.
I think also in like what we're building toward, it's really important to, and I'm not going to remember the quote off my head, the top of my head, but what I'm thinking about is often the conversations around like anti-racism and these types of things are often with this tone of like allyship and like I'm helping you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's just not the case,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're helping us. We're working for the future for us because sovereignty is for all of us, right? Like we're all conditioned into and harmed to varying degrees. But I think remembering that this work is for all of us, including those who benefit from us, but especially, for the collective, and remembering that um, there's a lot to be gained, there's a lot to be reconnected to because there was so much lost.
Yeah, there is. And how will that ultimately, yeah, how will that ultimately serve us all when that, we talk about Sankofa going back to get what's lost, but Sankofa is not just like, oh, I'm gonna reach for the past. Like there, like everything that comes with what it means to go into the past and sift through and have to find in the grief that you have to deal with. Like it's hard. There's a lot of grief work that comes up in this work. Grief of having known that someone has told you what you are, grief of what your ancestors have done, grief of learning that there's something more, grief of not being able to fully recover that thing that is more. Like there's so much grief in this work. Um, and that's also an important way to do amends to me too, right? To the folks that have been harmed, allowing like just much as you allow that shame go through that cycle and compost into something fertile, like so too the grief.
Mhm.
Let it be an offering for those who have been harmed by whiteness. And not like I'm grieving and you're grieving, so our grief is equal. Not that dumb shit. Like I'm allowing myself to go into a grieving process that I can choose not to do. I could just choose whiteness.
Mhm.
I don't have to be anything other than white. The world is not going to make me be anything. It's a choice to do this work, to go down this path, to do something that hurts, to do something that's uncomfortable, to stay with it, and to get the fruits that's ultimately about all of our liberation. Yeah. So if anybody, we have a few people on the chat. If you have a question, feel free to type it in the chat. But as we kind of get ready to close out, like maybe you can share something like a beginning, if someone's just beginning to question or they're early in their journey around conditioning and their relationship with whiteness. There's like things are starting to spark for them, things are starting to come alive. What's one thing that you want them to carry with them this week? And I'm going to ask that for someone that's new in their journey and also someone that's seasoned. If someone
Oh.
is seasoned and they with the shits, you know, what do we want the seasoned folks to know to carry them with them on this journey that is continuing?
Mm-hmm. Hell yeah. So I would say for someone that's just getting started, like, can't emphasize enough how much it's not necessary to get it perfect, right? But the necessity of staying engaged. And I think that is a really big piece that I wish I learned earlier of like how much what is happening on the somatic, on the bodily level, right? Like the inability to stay present, the need for tears and the centering, just all of this, right? The collapsing from shame. And so, especially in conversations like this, but just in general, like noticing what happens in your body, what is getting activated, and stay with it, right? Like sit with it, like we've been talking about, building that capacity to really be with your discomfort without moving away from it. And learning how to do that, right? Learning how to tend to yourself and be tender with yourself when that's showing up too. Um, and I would say for someone that is seasoned, I think really keeping that awareness that this is always stages. And it's not just that we pass from one to the level. We go back. I go back, right? I regress at times. And I think there can be this sense of like, and I see it in myself at moments of like um white exceptionalism, I think it's called, where you're like, but I'm not like those white people, right? And it's just like the reality is I am, right? Like it wouldn't evoke such a strong reaction, especially at some moments versus others, if there wasn't that bit of um unlearning that still existed within me, right? And so I think really keeping that in mind, that we're never there, there's never a completion of this work, it's lifelong, and to be humble, right?
Yeah. What do you think, Audrey? One thing you want a beginner and seasoned person to take with them?
I'm seeing like a Fibonacci sequence, like we're all just in this like constantly evolving, twirling spiral, engaging with each other. And for seasoned and for beginners, like we're in this just we're in a different part of the spiral, but we're feeding and nourishing each other and making something beautiful outside of the scope of what we can see from inside of our spot on the design.
Okay. So tell us more about the work that you're doing, the clients that you're working with who can benefit from these types of conversations, not just like on internets to think about things, but also clinically to like get in the room and sit on the couch and to do the work. And then what other offerings you might be offering through Doorways. Audrey, you go ahead and start.
um, hmm. Other ways we can bring this work into the office?
Just like tell me about the work with the clients that you're seeing. Who are you seeing right
Yeah.
now?
I
And then what
mean,
is the we're gonna
yeah.
go ahead.
I'm seeing such a like diversity of incredible humans. I feel so grateful for the people that I'm working with. and grateful to Doorways for creating these relationships. I think about something that I would welcome is people who are really feeling the weight of the collapse of empire and fearful. Like there's just so much to be afraid of right now, right? Um, and how to stand in the face of this collapse, um, and finding like these internal resources, strength, even place in the revolution of watching it come down, building something new, creating community.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Sara?
Um, Similarly, I work with a pretty broad range of ages and backgrounds, positionalities. But I think what I found my passion is around like bringing awareness to how often systems of oppression are really at the root of our struggles, right? And like really shaping like how we feel, how we relate, like how we move in the world. And so um often we might be aware of these systems but not really aware always of how they're showing up in all areas of life. I would say I especially like working with folks who are in systems. So what I think about right now is like specifically healthcare providers, right? Or even folks who are working like corporate jobs, right? And like who are like living within and working and gaining livelihood from within systems, and this like struggle and tension that exists when you're also trying to go outside of that, right? Or to go beyond that, and your livelihood is also in contradiction with that,
Mhm.
if that makes sense.
It does.
And so um yeah, really like folks who are wanting to engage with that and unlearn these internalized patterns of dominance, whatever they look like, right? Like maybe even beyond whiteness, right? Patriarchy, and some of these other systems of dominance that are really impacting every one of us in different ways.
So my battery is killed.
Okay.
Talk about the group real quick, and then I'll open a post where you can continue to like kind of say some things, and then we'll be sharing stuff on our stories throughout the week so folks can connect with you. You're already posted on our stories if folks are interested in seeing doing some therapeutic work with you, and then we'll be posting. We've already posted about your group too, but go ahead and tell us about your group, and then when it cuts off, it's because my battery died.
Okay, I can do it really quickly, hopefully. So we're offering two groups focused on deconstructing whiteness and reclaiming sovereignty. These spaces, one of which is supporting global majority folks, the other one supporting white folks, both separately, in examining how whiteness and systems of supremacy have really shaped their lives and opening up and strengthening avenues for reconnection, a lot of which we've talked about here around ancestry, land, self, relationships, community. So we have, Courtney has linked everything in her profile. Um, and feel free to reach out to either of us, especially if you have questions, want to know about resources. We're here.
So
Thank
I
you.
plugged my phone in.
Okay.
but But I mean, we are at the end of our time. I really appreciate you guys and all of the things that you're offering. I'm so grateful to have you guys as therapists at Doorways in the work that you're doing. Um, we are predominantly queer, predominantly BIPOC, and I think it's also so important to have white folks that are willing to do this work, to really willing to have these conversations, willing to invest in other white folks that want to find that reconnection to land, ancestry, to self, that want to dismantle and also want to build something that we all can live in. And so just kudos and hats off to you for being two people that are willing to go on Instagram Live with me and talk about that. The first two people in our series will be meeting in a couple of weeks with some more therapists and learning more about the work that they're doing. Your group is open. You're taking folks that are interested. We have a couple slots left. And I'm going to post this on YouTube. So it's going to be posted on YouTube, and then all the links are going to be in the comments. And then we'll also be posting links to the interest form on our Instagram. And I mean, you guys are amazing therapists. As your supervisor, I know the work that you do. It's so beautiful. And so many people could benefit from what you offer. So I hope people will take us up on that and get the privilege of being able to heal with you.
Thank you so much. And just want to add that, like, what a privilege it is for me to be at Doorways and to have found a place that is so in alignment. Doorways is the place that is beyond what I could have dreamed of. And I would say that Audrey and I are naming like who we work with, but we have a lot of incredible colleagues that even if you don't feel as aligned with us, I would encourage you to check out Doorways website and see who else there is, because we have an incredible team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we will be seeing you soon on the YouTube internets forever, and then folks can reach out to you. Thank you so much.
Thank
You did
you.
great. Thanks for kicking off our series. And bye for now. Bye bye.
Bye.